this is station 5. I'm going to be using magnesium metal and hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid is corrosive to body tissue, so this is one of the reasons I'm wearing my safety goggles, lab coat. I want to be extra careful to keep it off me. If I did spill some on me, I want to splash it with some water to dilute the hydrochloric acid.
Ms. Anderson is going to obtain a 3 centimeter piece of magnesium and break it into small pieces. Magnesium is a soft metal that cuts easily. I'm going to take those pieces and place them into a test tube. And now that the magnesium is in the bottom of the test tube, she's going to add several drops of hydrochloric acid to the magnesium. As the hydrochloric acid reacts with magnesium, record your observations about what you see.
Okay, I noticed that this is super hot on the bottom of the test tube, and you can hear it fizzing. So it's producing a gas. I'm going to add a little bit more hydrochloric acid. And it's still reacting. And getting super hot. Okay, so notice the solution now. I don't see any pieces of magnesium left in there. So write down your observations for station 5.
This is experiment 6.
Mrs. Bart is going to grind several crystals of copper sulfate pentahydrate with a mortar and pestle. You can see the starting color of the crystals are a nice blue. You can record that in your observation table. And after she grinds it, you have to decide if this step is a physical or a chemical change.
This is a workout.
Make observations in the data table to decide if that's physical or chemical and provide evidence. Next, she's going to take the micro spatula of the powder and place some of it into a test tube. Now that the powder is in the test tube, she's going to light the Bunsen burner and heat those crystals or those powders over the Bunsen burner for a couple minutes. Lighting a Bunsen burner is never easy.
All right, stop.
Okay, so as she's heating the powder in the test tube, notice she's keeping the open end away from herself so that if any splatters, no one gets hurt. Record observations about changes you see as those blue crystals are exposed to heat. Decide if that's a physical or chemical change.
So you can see on the bottom, it's turning a little bit white. On the top, there's still some blue.
So as it's been heated, those blue crystals have turned white. And now we're going to allow it to cool for several minutes. And then we'll add water to see what happens to those crystals. So we've let the test tube cool for a couple minutes. And now we're going to add water to those crystals to see what happens. Ooh, and as you can see, those crystals rehydrated and it turned blue again.
All right, this is station 7. So you want to write down your observations under step 7.
Ms. Anderson is going to observe 3 different test tubes. The first one contains iron only. Iron is an element on the periodic table. She's going to hold a magnet up to the iron to see what happens. You can record your observations about what you see the magnet attracting the iron. Next, she's going to do the same thing with a test tube of sulfur. Sulfur is a different element on the periodic table. Record observations if you see any changes happening with the with the sulfur and the magnet. And next, she's going to take a test tube with a mixture of both iron and sulfur and see what happens when the magnet is placed next to the mixture. Record observations about what you see. You can see maybe the iron being separated from the sulfur, since the iron has shown magnetic properties while the sulfur does not respond. Okay, now this is the last station, station 8.
So Mr. Bunnell has a stopper test tube containing a heated sample of iron and sulfur. And he's going to also test that sample with a magnet by running the magnet along the side of the test tube. You'll want to record your observations in the data table under step 8.
So the heat has fused the iron and sulfur to make a new compound called iron sulfide. And what we're comparing here on step 8 versus step 7 is the properties of the compound compared to the properties of the elements themselves. And as you can see, the compound is not responding to the magnet. There is nothing happening here. So you can think about how the properties of a compound compare with the properties of the elements that make up the compound. So now that we've completed the lab, we want you to fill out your data table and make predictions for each process about whether it was physical or a chemical change and provide evidence for why from your observations. So you can see that we filled in physical for melting candle, and some observations why would be the molecules of the wax have not changed. They just simply separated and they went from solid to liquid. So a physical change is a state change. And whereas if you compare the burning of the candle wax, that would be a chemical change because a new gas is produced, heat was released, and we'd see a color change as well as a new gas and heat being formed, which is evidence of a chemical reaction. So go through your table and fill out the rest of them, making predictions about whether each one is physical or chemical, and provide a reason why from your data table that you should have filled out during the lab.
Thanks for joining our chemistry lab today, and all your chemistry teachers at Conifer High School. We'll go over questions in our next Google Meet. Bye.